Hey guys, BuildZoid here, and we've got a very random RAM overclocking video. Random because this memory kit is actually meant for X99, so it's like really old and super irrelevant. Actually, it's not really that old, but it is very irrelevant. Like, nobody's gonna run this memory kit on their Threadripper, or at least they probably shouldn't, because it's not really a particularly pleasant experience. So the memory kit in question here is a set of Corsair Dominator, just Dominator Platinums, but they're with these orange heat spreaders, and they were meant originally for the Gigabyte X99 SoC Champion motherboard, which I do have, but that motherboard only takes 4 memory sticks, not 8. And, well, I picked up 8 of these. And you might be like, BuildZoid, why would you pick up 8 of these? And my response to that is, well, they're orange. And they're based on Samsung 4 gigabit eDie. So you can kind of see how how my decision-making process isn't very good. And then since I had 8 sticks, I was like, what could I run this on? What can run 8 sticks? And there's obviously the X299 option, but I didn't really, well, there was the X299 option, but that would require me to extract the 7940X out of the X299 Dark that it's currently in, and there's like a water block on it, and it's delidded, and that sounds like a pain. So yeah, I've stuck it into a Threadripper motherboard, which was a terrible idea because Threadripper's memory controller is like, so everything you don't like about memory overclocking on regular Ryzen, yeah, just crank that up to 11. Actually, just everything you don't like about overclocking a regular Ryzen, crank that up to 11, and you get the Threadripper experience. Combine with the addition of an extremely long post time. Like, this platform is awful. Anyway, so yeah, as you can see, there's been a bit of a chain of bad decisions here in the process, and the end result of all those not that great decisions is what we're looking at right here. So it is actually quite stable, this overclock. You know, we're over 400% mem test, and this time I actually went and ran LinPack for only around 15 minutes, but I did run it. So yeah, and actually passing LinPack on this was kind of like, the nice thing about LinPack is, like, a lot of the time if you can do 15 minutes of LinPack, you can probably pass almost indefinite amounts of memtest. Whereas the opposite isn't true, because memtest doesn't tend to hit the memory control. Well, it hits the memory controller pretty hard, but it doesn't get the CPU very hot. So if the memory controller gets upset about elevated operating temperatures, LinPack is going to detect that very quickly, because LinPack runs really freaking hot. So yeah, but it ran LinPack, and also the other nice thing is LinPack gives you a performance measurement while it's running, which reminds me, I do technically have a new version of memtest, which also gives you like a readout of gigabytes of memory tested per second. So I'm not sure why oh, it's because I just dug up a random operating system from my drawer of SSDs. So anyway, top 10 decision making right here at AHOC when it comes to producing videos. I just thought it would be kind of interesting to see how Samsung, like 4 gig, how, you know, what is this? A dual rank setup of 4 gigabit Samsung eDie would behave on a Threadripper system. The answer to that is badly. So yeah, so you know, it's nice and stable. But what I haven't told you yet is how bad the overclock is. And it's not like I had much choice in this. Well, admittedly, I kind of gave up when I realized that higher frequencies were being an absolute nightmare to stabilize. But anyway, yeah, we're just at 3466. It is synchronized with the Infinity Fabric, and the timings are tightened up, though you can't tell from the primaries, because Samsung 4 gigabit eDie has very similar primary timing behavior to, like, actually it's even looser. I guess you could compare it to Hynix DJR. Yeah, I think it's similar to Hynix DJR in terms of primary timings. In terms of sub-timings, it has a TRFC advantage, and I think that's actually it. But anyway, yeah, so we're at 3466, 1418, 1838. It does have, well, actually, DJR also has good voltage tolerance. So yeah, this is a lot like DJR, but really old and half the capacity. But Anyway, like the performance isn't too bad. Even though like the frequency isn't that high because it is, you know, quad channel dual rank. And I think like I don't think no, I technically I could run some dual rank setups on Threadripper with some Micron sticks. Though those would actually the funny thing is those would actually run very similar timings with worse like similar the primaries wouldn't be significantly better while the sub timings would actually be somewhat worse in some ways. So, funnily enough, this isn't necessarily the worst thing I could have done to this as far as dual rank memory configurations go. With like memory that I actually have, because I don't have enough really terrible memory sticks to get stuck at like 3200. Yeah, so 97 gigabytes per second read, which you can certainly go over. Well, you can go slightly over 100 if you really push it. Actually, you can go, like, it depends if you're running synchronized or desynchronized, but on dual rank like this, it's not getting significantly higher than this. Because basically there's a frequency wall at, like, 3733. Like, it will not boot 3800 at all, and, you know, to be fair, I'm not really, like, Samsung 4 gigabit EDI, the one thing where it's different compared to, say, Hynix DJR is it's actually quite heavy on the memory controller. Also, these memory sticks being freaking ancient, you know, being from the X99 era, like ancient by DDR4 standards, they're on the A0 PCB. The A0 PCB is not good for frequency. And like it's actually not even, and it doesn't have a timing advantage. So it's like at best it clocks the same as a good A2 while hitting the same timings as an A2. So yeah, this PCB isn't helping. And then of course the motherboard is a daisy chain and it's a Threadripper motherboard. So while it might have 8 layers, 8 PCB layers, the 2 top layers, which would say on a like an X570 board or something, well, the top layer and the bottom layer, which on say an X570 or a B550 motherboard would be dedicated to improving memory signal quality, well, on this, those are dedicated to routing PCIe lanes. So the memory overclocking experience on your average TRX 40 motherboard is a lot like overclocking on a B450. And to be completely honest, 4 sticks of single rank BDI wall at around 3800. Well, not actually, they might go a little over that depending on which exact B450 board you're using and what CPU, but a lot of the time, yeah, that's actually kind of where you would wall because 4-layer B, like, yeah, so this is just kind of like not the ideal memory configuration. So I can't really push the frequency very high. And unfortunately, the other issue is that the timing, like the sticks shouldn't even necessarily need the timings that loose to run even just 3600. But in order to run 3600, the primary timings need to get so incredibly loose that the latency ends up going over 80 nanoseconds. And it's just like, and ultimately I do pick up a little bit of read and write speed. And I think also a bit of copy. The copy test is really inconsistent. There's like more than a gig of variance in that test run to run. Yeah, so like while I could bring the read and write speed up, I don't like looking at the latency number being over 80 nanoseconds, which 77 isn't really much of an improvement, but Threadripper's memory controller is like everything wrong with the Ryzen 3rd gen memory controller cranked up to 11. So it's like, you know how Ryzen normally has a lot of memory latency? Well, Threadripper has like way more, and there's nothing you can do about it. So yeah, I'm just like, and this is why we don't see a lot of videos with me overclocking on Threadripper. Basically the only reason I committed to this after I realized how horrible it is was because this is only 32 gigs of RAM, right? Like Samsung 4, like we've got 8 4 gigabyte sticks, so 32 gigs of RAM. So this only takes about as long to stress test as 16 gigabytes on a dual channel platform. So it really doesn't take that long to stress test, and that's kind of the only reason why I committed to actually like finishing the stress testing here, because well, if we were running 64 gigs, it would take twice as long, and the results would be similarly unimpressive, and and that would just be like an 8x8 setup. And then there's like memory configurations that people who run Threadripper actually want, which is like 128 or 256, and it's just like no. I'm not running a 128 gig mem. Actually, I think I started a 128 gig mem test at one point in time, and then I just decided, yeah, we're not finishing this. It takes so freaking long. I'm not waiting for that. Anyway, so yeah, so the IDA perform, like, this isn't too bad. Like, I don't think within the limits of what you can do with dual rank on Threadripper, like, you're not really going to see, I don't think you're necessarily going to see massively higher numbers. On single rank, you can go over 100 gigs quite easily. I think there's I think I saw somebody post a 120 gigabytes per second with like desynced and a BDI at super low timings, and I think also with max mem. But yeah, like for like multiple ranks, stable settings, I don't think there's really a lot of room left. The other thing is, like, this won't even run 30, like, even though I think I can technically boot the sticks at 3800, it's completely pointless because the Infinity Fabric on this chip doesn't do 1900. So, yeah. So yeah, also the Infinity Fabric on Threadrippers clocks worse than on regular Ryzen's because, you know, everything about the Ryzen memory controller that you dislike cranked up to 11. So, yeah, I love Threadripper. Absolutely greatest server platform I've ever touched. By which I mean only server platform I've ever touched. Yeah, that's actually true. The only server platform I've ever overclocked. So, you know, by those standards, the best one I've ever overclocked. And I do realize it's not actually a server platform, but it's like, it's closer to server hardware than what I would like. It's more, yeah, it's closer to server hardware than like what X299 is, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I do normally run Geekbench, and Geekbench is just going to make me so sad. Actually, it might make me really happy. For some reason, this version of Geekbench, which I have here, and I think it's a little bit outdated, but it does identify the CPU correctly, so I don't know. I think it's a bit outdated because this whole OS is kind of weird. I honestly don't know what motherboard I first set this OS up on or when. So this whole OS is kind of very questionable. Not in terms of performance, just like what are the programs installed on here. The thing that yeah, so the thing with Geekbench on this system, in my experience, is that the score goes, actually it does that even on the new version. Like, if you run it right after booting, the score is way better than any consecutive run. Now, I'm not sure if it has to be the first run of Geekbench or just first run of any benchmark in general. I'm hoping it has to just be the first run of Geekbench. Otherwise, we're going to have to restart in order to get, like, the actual... well, I don't know. Like, I would consider the best score the proper score, because the score just keeps going down if you keep running Geekbench over and over. Or at least a few times it did that, where like I'd get like an 8.5K, then an 8.2K, then a 7.8K, and, you know, it's like, okay, so that's great. So this isn't the highest score I've seen. And these settings should actually be scoring closer to like 8,500, well, a bit higher than this. Like, honestly, even 8,600 should be possible, but I'll take it. The CPU's on auto core clock and everything, because, I mean, I'm on an air cooler. Like, what do you expect me to do? I can't even really enable PBO because it maxes out the heatsink before it maxes out the thermal, like the power limits. Also, the whole thing runs insanely hot, which actually with Samsung 4GB eDI isn't really that much of an issue. It's not as temperature sensitive as some of the other memory chips out there. Oh yeah, and then of course we have the month-long boot up time. This wasn't too bad. Like, when it needs to first train the memory, that's awful. It sits on like postcode 92 for just forever. Like, that's been one of the biggest problems for me with Threadripper, is like watching it sit on postcode 92, and I'm not used to the platform taking so freaking long to get through one postcode, so I'm immediately like, oh, I guess it locked up. And I'm pretty sure there's been times where I've reset the system even though it hadn't locked up, just because Threadripper takes so freaking long to start. So anyway, everything's on auto because, I mean, it's stable. Like, I just kind of gave up on trying to optimize anything. It's not like the board's doing anything wrong, because it is stable. So the board's doing a good job. Yeah, 1.5 volts into the memory sticks, which is perfectly fine for them. And here's the settings. and they're horrible. Like, to be fair, the TRCD is just not going to go down with Samsung 4 gigabit eDI at this frequency. That's not really going to get better. Same for like, well, TRP might go down a smidge, and WR might do 8, but I didn't try that. TRAS 38, that might go lower, but TRC seems to have a relatively high wall. But 56, like if this was BDI, we'd be aiming for TRC in the range of like 40. So yeah, I'm not thrilled about the 56 right there. I think there's also a TWR wall, because like 16 was erroring. I'm not sure if RTTP will go lower. These, I know for a fact, are like, well, touching those makes it not post, and I'm done. I'm super done with this. So it's kind of that. Other than that, for some reason, RDWR on this train's super loose, and like if I leave that on auto, it'll end up at like 25 or something. So yeah, it also doesn't really seem to make too much of a difference to any of the benchmarks I've been running. Like even Linpack doesn't seem to care too much, so I'm not sure what's up with that. And then the SCL's at 4. I think I tried 2 and it didn't post. There's a decent chance I tried some other timing at the same time, and that was what actually caused the issue. But at this point, I'm just like so done with this, because yeah, this was a dumb idea. This was a really dumb idea. This is like the wrong memory kit. And then, well, like, what's the correct memory kit to run on Threadripper? In my opinion, no memory kit. You just don't run Threadripper. Yeah. I like the only reason I run this platform is because I have it. And I've been feeling kind of bad about the fact that it just sits in its box, like the motherboard and the CPU just sit in their box all day, because yeah, it's not good at any of the benchmarks I like to run. I did run it on LN2, but that was because I wanted to burn a lot of LN2 quickly. And it didn't even do a great job of that, because I spent more time restarting the stupid thing than I spent actually running benchmarks. So, you know, perfect. Anyway. Yeah, so that's like probably the most disappointing memory overclock video that I've done so far. Like, I normally try to go and like the neat thing with this kit is it actually performs very well even at XMP, at least in this configuration, because it is in dual rank, and then it doesn't really overclock much. So at XMP it scores like 8,000 in Geekbench. And as you saw, quite a lot of my efforts just led to like an 8,500, which is like not great. Because the XMP on these sticks is really, really high relative to the platform that they're meant for. Because these are originally meant for X99, and they are spec'd. Oh, this is convenient. Can I? Oh no, the cable's in the way. Actually, we can just rest it on the heatsink and then zoom in on that. Right, try to get the light out of it. There we go. Yeah, so that's a really aggressive spec for like, well, X99, which is what it's meant for, because the Haswell E memory controller like barely does 3200 a lot of the time. Actually, I've had Haswell E CPUs that don't reliably do 3000. So this right here is really aggressive for X99. Yeah, so it like for like at stock on Threadripper, it actually works okay, because honestly on Threadripper, I'm not sure if it's like a lot. Like, I have one chip, okay? I have one 3960X, so I don't know how consistent it is that the Infinity Fabric barely does 1866, but this isn't that far off of the 1800 that this normally walls at if you don't bend over backwards to make the Infinity Fabric clock higher. So yeah, though, like, the only way you're getting a kit like this is if you find it on eBay, so it's, yeah, like, this video is super freaking pointless. It's like, if you wanted Threadripper RAM overclocking content, this is what you're gonna get. Because everything else just takes way too damn long to stress test. Anyway, and yeah, the PCB is A0, which, I'm not sure you can see it. Yeah, no, that's not working. Anyway, A0 basically just has the memory chips spaced out evenly along the along the PCB, and this PCB's like it's just bad as far as I'm concerned, because it basically just walls at like 4600 to, well, not necessarily 4600, but like the maximum frequency you can get out of an A0 PCB, at least in my past experience, has been around 4666, maybe 4700. And yeah, so I don't really like, whereas if you get like an A2 memory stick, which is what you normally get these days, they'll go as far as the memory chips go, basically. Like 5000 is doable, 5100 is doable, 5200, 5300, 5500. Like there's no real upper limit other than what your CPU and what your memory controller, motherboard, and the memory chips can do. Whereas on A0, it's like, yeah, you're probably going to get stuck on 4700 regardless of what it is that the memory stick is actually made with, or how good your, well, I have seen like A0 sticks doing 4800, but yeah, like not in my collection. So I'd consider those like anomalies. So anyway, and you can tell this is Samsung eDie because of the version number over there, 4.24. The first 4 tells us this is a Samsung memory stick. The 2 tells us it's a 4 gigabit memory chip, and the second 4 tells us that it's eDie. So yeah, the numbers actually, like the third number literally depends on the manufacturer. For some manufacturers, it doesn't not all manufacturer, like Micron Revision E, I don't know if it's 3.34. I'm not sure what it is. So actually, no, it should be 3.34, but I don't think it is. So yeah, like Corsair's version numbers, like the first number in the version number tells you which manufacturer. The second one tells you the density. The third one is a very rough indicator of revision. For some manufacturers, it's kind of a mess. For other manufacturers like Samsung, it's actually really consistent, where like 4.24 always, like the 4 is always eDie. So like a D-die stick would be 4.23, a B-die stick would be like 4.21. Yeah, 4.21. Never seen one of those. But then if you look at like actual 8 gigabit B-die, then you have 4.31. So yeah, it's really consistent for Samsung at least, though it's not necessarily for all memory chips that Corsair uses. Anyway, so yeah, that's running a really not optimal kit on a Threadripper system. I don't even know that I'll publish this video because it's just like the overclock kind of sucks. This memory kit isn't relevant to anybody. Like this is a relatively, like, I would assume it's a relatively uncommon memory kit, because as far as I know, it was really expensive back when it came out. And so it's like, yeah, kind of uncommon memory kit. You wouldn't run this on a Threadripper. Like, there's no good reason to run this on a Threadripper at all. Because like the only, like, because it doesn't even run well. Like if it actually ran well, because you know, Samsung, like the Samsung eDie 4 gigabit, if you run it on platforms where it actually works properly, you can very easily push it over 4,000 megahertz. I'm not sure if this kit will go over 4,000. I was kind of hoping it would do that with the Threadripper, but you know, that didn't pan out. Yeah, I do plan to do some, well, what I really want to do, like this was sort of just like, oh, well, let's try it. Like, what's the worst case scenario? It does this. This is basically worst case. Well, no, worst case scenario would have been if I enabled the XMP and it didn't work. That would have been worst case scenario, but this is pretty close to the worst case scenario as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, like my future plans for the kit are basically to test all of the different sticks and see how they behave, because yeah, I have 8 sticks, so we may as well, I might maybe do like a binning video or something. I don't know. I want to bin them, like, just to see if like any of them can do impressive frequency or anything cool like that, because I do have quite a lot of Samsung 4 gigabit eDie. because it's really fun to mess with, as long as you're not on a Threadripper. So, yeah, anyway, that's kind of it for the video. I guess thanks for watching. I guess I might also run it on X99. I would not... Technically, I could run 8 sticks of this on X99 with a 6950X. Because I do have 4 DIMM X99 boards. Oh man, I could be extra... Like, worst idea ever. Run 4 of these on a EVGA X99 board. At least it'll be T-topology. I'm pretty sure the classified is T-topology. So hopefully it won't completely, like, suck. But yeah, I wouldn't have high expectations. And the 6.9, well, that sounds like an equally stupid idea to what I did here, except like more irrelevant because it's X99. But anyway, yeah, that's like I have future plans for these that mostly involve a 4750G and a B550 Unify X right now, which seems like that's going to be a pleasant overclocking experience. This wasn't. So yeah, you might be interested in that. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, suggestions. No, don't leave suggestions, just comments and questions down in the comment section below. If you'd like to support what I do here with actually hardcore overclocking, I have a Patreon. There's a link to that down in the description below. And then there's also the AHOC Teespring store where you can pick up shirts, stickers, posters, you know, the usual YouTuber merch. Both of those help out immensely with running the channel, which allows me to do really dumb stuff like running memory chips on, well, memory sticks from like, not that old. I think they're from like, actually, we can just check the date code. When are these from? Oh, these are from 2016. So yeah, these, oh, that's 4 years ago. No, that's like 5 years ago. Damn. Anyway, yeah, so, you know, you can help me run memory sticks on 2016 on modern hardware, because that's what people want to see. Anyway, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.